The people of China and the United States are both great peoples. Achieving the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation and making America great again can go hand in hand.
This bond of commerce and respect that stretches back 250 years is the foundation for a future that benefits both of our nations. The American and Chinese people share much in common.
Warm words in Beijing, but the pleasantries ended behind closed doors. Reports that Chinese President Xi Jinping put his chips on the table, warning our president directly that any mishandling of Taiwan could create an extremely dangerous situation, quote unquote. And we're off to the races. Welcome to the Big Money Show. I'm Dagan McDowell, along with my co-hosts, Taylor Riggs, Brian Brenberg, Jackie DeAngelis. And with us for this hour, Jason Trennert, Chairman and CEO of Strategas.
Good to be here.
Great to see you, my friend.
Thank you.
President Trump came looking for a win on trade and Iran, with both leaders agreeing Tehran cannot control the Strait of Hormuz, but Taiwan may be the issue overshadowing all of this. Let's go to Jackie Heinrich in Beijing with the very latest. Jackie, great to see you as well.
Great to see you, Dagan. Yeah, we're learning why the Chinese readout of the bilateral meeting with President Trump was so harsh. Xi Jinping badly wanted President Trump to change U.S. policy toward Taiwan. And we are learning from Secretary of State Marco Rubio that that did not happen.
We hear them when they say this. We always respond by saying anything that would compel or force a change in what we have now would be problematic. And we would certainly, our policies on that have not changed. It's been pretty consistent across multiple presidential administrations and remains consistent now.
Now it's clear why Xi's remarks in the state banquet included warnings wrapped up in pleasantries, and the Chinese readout from the bilateral meeting included that threat, calling Taiwan the most important issue for U.S.-China relations and saying if it isn't handled properly, quote, the two countries will have clashes and even conflicts, putting the entire relationship in great jeopardy. Taiwan independence and cross-strait peace are as irreconcilable as fire and water. The U.S. side must exercise extra caution in handling the Taiwan question. Now, Xi was expected to dangle help with the Iran war in exchange for movement on U.S. policy toward Taiwan, and accordingly, the Chinese readout makes no mention of Iran, but the White House readout says President Xi also made clear China's opposition to the militarization of the strait and any effort to charge a toll for its use. And he expressed interest in purchasing more American oil to reduce China's dependence on the strait in the future. But President Trump revealed to Sean Hannity that more Chinese purchases of U.S. oil doesn't necessarily mean fewer Chinese purchases of Iranian oil. The president told Sean Hannity that they want to keep buying Iranian oil, even though they don't like the fact that they are charging tolls in the strait. So the dynamics of this relationship overall are pretty unchanged. We may yet see some announcements before the president is wheels up back to D.C. He has one more meeting, a tea, and then a working lunch with President Xi, and we might see some announcements come out of that still. Dagan.
Great to see you. Thank you so much, Jackie Heinrich, for that reporting and all of your reporting.
Thank you.
Jason, what are you watching? There's much focus on Taiwan. Again, Iran not mentioned at all in the readout sent out by China. But in terms of trade, there seems to be a kind of get along to go along and a status quo, which is good for the economy.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I think there's a little bit of an element of Michael Corleone here, which is, you keep your friends close and you keep your enemies a bit closer. President Trump is no fool when it comes to China's intentions. It is clearly a rival. It's also a place where we largely exported our middle class by allowing China to join the WTO. So I think it's, Dagan, I think it's a good idea, better than have a Cold War, to have some engagement with China. But I also think we have to recognize, and I think President Trump, again, recognizes that this remains a rival. It's good to have these business leaders with him, but, they are incentivized to worry about their businesses specifically, and President Trump is charged with worrying about the American people. And so there are different incentives. Thank goodness. I think it's good to have a combination of those two. I think it seems like a good first step.
I think this was very strategic. I think this was very strategic before the president decides how he's going to complete the mission with Iran. So, Brian, we've been talking about this pause and asking why. Why would he pause? It seems more clear to me now that he wanted to make this trip, understand face to face where he stands with President Xi on all the issues. And it does seem like they got to all the issues before he makes his move. Now, the Taiwan warning obviously wasn't great, but the fact that they agree that the Strait of Hormuz shouldn't be closed is a positive thing. We do believe that China has been working with the Iranians to a certain degree and not in the American interest. So if they made inroads here and if Xi isn't lying to the president, then he sort of knows where they stand. Obviously, they've got the oil that they bought on the cheap. They put a lot in storage, but they don't like the fact that the strait is closed and their biggest supplier is not able to give them what they need. What I found interesting was the oil conversation about oil here in the United States. Part of our mission has been to drill, has been to keep that base price lower, even in the face of conflict as we've seen it, but also to be a global supplier. We have that capability and that capacity right now, and they talked about that. The president said to Xi in so many words, you don't have to get your oil from China, you can get it from us. So I'm interested in seeing where that goes. I also think it's interesting the president invited Xi to the White House in September. Remember in the first term when he came to Mar-a-Lago and he had his chocolate cake, and that is kind of what sort of started the foundation of this relationship moving forward. You know, the president's really smart in terms of his strategy and how he deals with other leaders. He doesn't just sit there and say, I don't like you and you don't like me and our interests aren't aligned and this isn't going to work. He tries to do the best he can. And I think Xi reciprocated with the way that he invited Trump and welcomed him yesterday. That was a big ceremony. Red carpets have been rolled out here. So both sides trying to really play the diplomatic card.
You made me think of something. Let me throw something at you. Shoot it down if you want to. But you said the Taiwan language, that whole interchange was a bad sign.
Yeah, I didn't love that.
What if it's not? What if it's a good sign? What if the strong language, okay, Xi not holding back, but kind of laying it out there, is a response to him feeling more pressured than ever by the moves Trump is making around the globe. In other words, you know how Trump has the effect of like drawing things out of people, right? When Trump came to office, we found out what the left was really about, and kind of all the poison came to the surface. I wonder if the same thing's happening with Xi. Xi's looking around the world, and he's seeing an America on the move, improving its leverage. And he's feeling more stressed and pressured. And so he feels like he's got to be more bold. He's got to come out and say bigger things, hoping to get a response from Trump. Because if we're just measuring action, Trump is outplaying him on every turn. I'm kind of viewing it that way. I wonder if that's actually what's going on here.
I'm sorry to butt in here, but you have to remember that Xi is facing his own internal political pressures, right? So, and it's from hardliners that want him to be tough. So there is a little bit of an element on both sides that you have to play to your domestic audience as well as kind of the global audience. So I hope you're right. I hope that's the motivation for it, as opposed to him being really gung-ho.
And economic weakness there.
But like what I'm hearing from you is that you feel like Xi might be feeling cornered. And I think that that's right, because I don't think they're in that like such strong shape at home to be able to really do anything on Taiwan. But he's saying, listen, I'm going to flex here a little bit because I can't give him everything.
It's what I have.
Right.
I can come with strong words because Trump's made strong moves. And I'm just saying, I read that as a good sign for what we're doing in the world. Even if it's sort of jarring to hear it from Xi, I read it as a sign that for the first time in a long time, we're playing offense and he's having to play defense.
I kind of see this. I see China. I see China economically. I see oil. And I think, and I don't want to be too Pollyanna, but I see a lot of places where, frankly, we could find some synergies and work together. And so I actually kind of walked away from this with a little bit of a positive. I like that they, at least in the U.S. readout, agreed that the strait needs to be open without tolls and that Iran both agree should not have a nuclear weapon. To me, that's great news. I also see where maybe we could partner. Now, I know that it is a trust but verify relationship and China makes commitments, but then they don't follow through. That there are a few places where I feel like we can play that tit for tat and both sides can win. China wants to dominate in AI and robotics. In order to do that, they export rare earths. In order for us to do that, maybe we export those NVIDIA chips, the H200s, the 6-month lag chips, not the great chips, but that can be a win-win. Maybe in manufacturers, because we've talked about the Chinese economy, those manufacturers on the ground, there was some reporting saying they're really looking for improvements because they see that they're struggling and they want access to the U.S. economy. Okay. And then, Jackie, I loved your point on oil. The U.S. is the world's largest LNG exporter and a top oil producer. China is the biggest buyer. So I feel like there are places where there can be wins for both, where we can both use leverage points to get what we want. So maybe I'm too optimistic on it, but if you just look across sort of those three easy sectors, I see, to me, sounds good.
Jason, final word on this in terms of, we talk about the military, but China's economic weakness versus whatever our economic weaknesses would be. Maybe not, if it's not GDP growth, we lead on artificial intelligence in a major way now, but our debt is a weakness. But if you can compare and contrast.
Listen, the U.S. has the world's reserve currency, has the strongest military. It's completely self-sufficient in terms of energy, and it's the most innovative place on the planet. So I don't view us really as equals, and I think the U.S. has all the cards. That may be, as Brian said, why China is being a little aggressive on maybe the one card they really do have. So I'm optimistic as well, but I also think that it would be foolish to assume this is just, going to some sort of normal relationship that we might have with a Western European country. It's just, it's not
We
going
don't
to
have
happen.
normal relationships with them anymore either, actually, right?
Yeah, no,
Maybe
it's true.
worse in
That's
some
true.
ways.
It's actually true. But there was just this mayor of Arcadia that was a Chinese spy. So it's not like there's any sort of slowdown in what China has been willing to do to get the upper hand.
When you go there, they spy on you.
Yes.
Just to even, on a reasonable business trip, that when you exit the country, they will ask you, how did you enjoy your dinner at this specific place at this specific time? They know where you are at every moment. So as aggressive as they are on spying, clearly on everyone who's there now, they are spying on every CEO here in the United States that has any relationship with China.
Well,
here
they
at
all
home.
use burner phones when they go because they know. They want to just toss them before they leave.
That doesn't stop them from tracking you back here.
Scary.
Frighteningly enough. You're looking at